In today's economy, you need two jobs just to afford breakfast. Filling up your tank? Might as well finance it. But there's some good news. Northwest Insurance Agency can actually save you some money. Auto, home, business, and more custom coverage without the custom price tag. Northwest Insurance. Protect more. Spend less.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We are presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana and his team can help you with your insurance coverage. Give them a call, 214-352-5656, or email them info@nwagencies.com and learn more about how he can help you out in the insurance space, no matter what you need in that regard. He'll take care of you. And you guys could talk a little SMU football as fall camp approaches. And look, speaking of approach, SMU headed to ACC Media Days on Tuesday. That'll be their day to go. Rhett Lashley, Kevin Jennings, Logan Parr, Isaiah Wacobia, and Alexander Kilgore set to head to Charlotte. Dean Ralski and I are taking our very, very just incredible 5 a.m.er out of DFW to make it over there to Charlotte in time for Rhett Lashley and company to take the podium. We'll have full coverage from ACC Media Days in Charlotte Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we really appreciate our sponsors for helping us do that. Northwest Insurance Agency, Thomas Auto Group, Status Jet, among those really helping us out in that regard with the travel and lodging over there in Charlotte. So please support those businesses. They're supporting us as we take our show on the road. I did just get back from Atlanta, SEC Media Days, did 3 days there. Could have done a fourth. We'll probably do a fourth next year. It's a blast, I will say, and not to make this about the SEC, but I think it's more so cool to see so many national folks and get to catch up with them. And also you see guys like Billy Lucci of Texags. You see, a lot of the Texas beat. You see some of these guys that I see regularly, whether it be covering recruiting or just going to different games and things like that. And SMU came up multiple times. And we had one of our guests that we chatted up with at SEC Media Days on for later in the show. And that's JD PicKell, On3's own. His show, The Hard Count, airs a couple times a week on On3's YouTube channel. And we talked a little bit about SMU, the ACC, kind of how he views things from a national lens. And look, if you've ever listened to JD PicKell on our On3 YouTube channel, he's a very program, as he likes to say, oriented person, a proponent of talking ball rather than talking about all of the things that normally dominate media days now, wherever you are, whatever conference, rev share, realignment, college football playoff discussion. Man, the days of going to media days and getting the biggest piece of injury news or some new development for a program are pretty much over. One, it's more that 24/7, 365 news cycle, social media, kind of so many opportunities for most people to know what's going on in these programs around the country. And so it's lost a lot of that. And of course, college football is just in a general state of, chaos, I guess. I mean, it seems like there are at least guardrails supposedly in place and all of those things, but this is a new era of college football and college athletics as revenue sharing has begun and the first payment set to hit athletes' bank accounts August 1st. And I'm sure that talking point, I'm sure those discussions will be had at ACC Media Days, which run Tuesday to Thursday in Charlotte next week. Big Ten Media Days are also that week. The American has their Media Days next week as well to kind of cap the week in Charlotte, actually. I didn't know this when it schedule came out, but the American does theirs, I believe, on Thursday and Friday in Charlotte. So, and there are a lot of good programs in there that I enjoy getting around their coaches. A lot of guys that I've known through the years. So maybe next year it's a whole week in Charlotte. But nevertheless, looking forward to getting over to Charlotte with Dean. We'll have live coverage. We'll have recorded podcasts, all from Radio Row. We're trying something new. I tried it at SEC Media Days. It was a huge success for us on that site, the Ole Miss site. And so people really enjoyed it, and kind of being there on the ground and doing it a little differently. This is a chance where Rhett Lashley and the 4 players I mentioned are going to hit the circuit. They're going to do things with the ACC network. They're going to have their time in the main stage, the main podium, which will be broadcast on ACC Network and ACC Network Extra. And they'll also get plenty of time with ESPN. They'll get some features done on them by some national media, I'm sure. And they'll also get time with ACC media as a whole, not just Radio Row where we're going to be, but we're looking forward to kind of being able to give you guys a more broad overview of the ACC. We've reached out to a bunch of SIDs. We're looking forward to having players, hopefully coaches, stop by our Radio Row setup. And, that'll be something that we've never done before. And so we're looking forward to bringing you guys the content, and then also having the time where we can, stop by and visit with Rhett Lashley, the 4 players, kind of off camera, and talk a little bit more for some in-depth stories ahead of fall camp. And fall camp is right around the corner. I believe report date is the 29th or 30th. Either way, SMU is set to begin camp here in less than 2 weeks, basically. And they will be breaking the rock on July 23rd, which is unfortunate for us because we will still be in Charlotte. So, Rhett Lashley, we'd love to discuss some other options for next year. But no, all kidding aside, I mean, we've been lucky enough. We chatted with Sean Griswold earlier this summer, and we'll be able to get all of that covered for you guys. Jordan Hoffenitz is going to go for us as well. So we'll have coverage there. It's just always such kind of a cool deal to see at the end of the summer. I've been to the last 2 of those. So to miss it is tough, but the ACC takes great care of us. This is a can't miss event for me. They do such a great job with it. I mean, it starts up at 8 a.m. Central on ACC Network for you guys. And I don't know when we'll start getting people coming through to our little setup, but on Tuesday from about 10:30 to about 11:30, we're going to have the SMU contingent roll through. So we're going to try to go live for that, assuming the Wi-Fi is good and things can kind of hold on in that respect. So we're going to record it anyway on the camera for those of you who remembered the ACC championship game live stream that kind of went awry at the bar we went to before and did that. We ended up getting most of that recorded. And so we're going to fall back on that, and we'll kind of do some things to try and test things. But that Tuesday is going to be really down and dirty with us landing at about 8:30 or so Charlotte time, Eastern time to kind of, hit the ground running at ACC Media Days. So we're looking forward to sharing those with you guys. Those will be a ton of fun. Again, Dean Rawlsky and myself from ontheponyexpress.com will be there. We've had a bunch of people sign up. We had 150 new signups to start the month of July. So we're really appreciative of everybody who's jumped on board. On3 and Rivals merged. So it's been a really cool deal where I believe we now have, a few new members joined us from the Rivals side of things, which is really cool to get that. I've asked for the board to get those threads from the SMU Rivals site merged onto ours. So there should be some good reading from back in the day that will eventually get put on our message board. So kind of a little jog down memory lane for a lot of you whenever that happens. But there's just a lot of fun, a lot of excitement going on right now for me as we're 2 weeks away basically from fall camp, and kind of the game plan for you guys. I know this is a lot of rambling and things like that to kick things off, but I feel like this is a perfect time to kind of set the stage for you guys. Today, I'm going to talk about what I want to see at ACC Media Days, what I want to learn overall, whether it be with SMU, whether it be some key teams rolling through there, whether it be Jim Phillips and any commentary he has on some of the state of college football type of things. His commissioner's address is bright and early at 8 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday. So that's the interesting thing about the ACC. I have to continue to tell myself Tuesday it begins, not Monday. But we'll have our interview with JD PicKell as well today, and I think it's a good one. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And then Friday, going to try to break down two things, break down some star players and break down some key position battles. So I'm going to share who I kind of pick as the star player for each position. Some of them are like, oh yeah, no, Billy, like, of course. Yeah, we know Kevin Jennings. Yeah, he's the definite pick for quarterback. But some of them, it's more up in the air. So I'm going to share my predictions on who's going to be the star players at each position for SMU when we look back on the 2025 season and we say, oh, okay, all right, that one worked out, that one didn't. And then we'll also kind of assess some key position battles I'm looking at as well. And both of those stories I'm going to put up in the written form as well at ontheponyexpress.com. The key position battles one is going to have more on position battles as a whole. I'm going to pick a couple that I'm watching, probably one, maybe two on each side of the ball tomorrow when I do that pod. But overall, we're kind of churning ahead. I was texting with our friend Hayden Howerton. We're really excited to kind of get back to a regular cadence of doing these podcasts. We've got a lot to share with you guys and go through as we, approach the start of fall camp. So we'll kind of run down some thoughts on where the position groups stand and all of those things. And it's going to be a blast. So really looking forward to kind of gearing all of that back up and getting a chance to get things rolling again with Hayden, with Dean, and before we know it, fall camp is going to be here. So this is a good time to get some previews done. Good time to take one last breath before the sprint of college football season. The sprint, the marathon that you sprint with college football approaching us. So really hope you guys enjoy all the content. I've rambled enough, but do you want to remind you guys before we get into the kind of talking points I'm paying attention to at ACC Media Days? I do want to remind you guys about our friend Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net. Reach out to Andy today, and he will show you just kind of what you can get into with the franchise ownership world. There are all sorts of different categories of franchise that he can walk you through that might be best for you, best for your financial commitment, best for your time. There are franchises that don't have a brick and mortar setup. There are franchises that don't need but a empty lot to store vehicles or store equipment and things like that. There are all sorts of different ways that you can find your way into the franchise world, and Andy Ludicky will do that for you and share that with you. His services are 100% free. So give him a call, 404-973-9901, or email him, andy@myperfectfranchise.net. All right, we get into ACC Media Days, and SMU is hitting the podium on Tuesday, of course, as we noted. And they're not the only big-name school from 2024 set to hit the podium that day. Miami will actually lead things off with Mario Cristobal leading the way at 10 to 10:30 in the main room, Central Time on ACC Network. Carson Beck, the quarterback, is going to join him. Wesley Bisianthi, I might have butchered that, but a linebacker is going to join him. Francis Malgoa, that's the big offensive tackle from Samoa for Miami, and Akeem Mesidor, a defensive lineman from Ottawa, Ontario. So looking forward to picking his brain about the future of the Sens. But nevertheless, Miami is a program that is going to get talked up a lot. I mean, even with our interview with JD PicKell, we talked about, you've got teams that are talented, but can they become what they're not only predicted to be, but what their ceiling should be? And Miami is certainly, in my opinion, the Texas A&M of the ACC. I was talking with Alyssa Lang of SEC Network about A&M, and she was kind of like, look, do I pick A&M? But is A&M a dark horse? Is my dark horse pick? I like Marcel Reed, but you also have the fact that they have one of the most talented rosters in the SEC. But then again, 7-5 8-5, 8-4, whatever is kind of where A&M always lands. So yeah, making bowls, but not punching through to what their roster ceiling is. That's kind of Miami with the ACC. They're going to get the buzz. They're going to get the hype. It wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, everyone's going to pick Clemson number one in the ACC. I mean, that's just kind of, I don't know, going into the year, I think it'd be very, very homerish if I put SMU above Clemson with just all the talent that they had or have in that program. I think they have 4 projected top 15 NFL draft picks. They have 5 in the first round by most analysts. They return a lot. They just look like they're poised to have a really, really big year. And I think that's a safe bet that they're going to be number one. But then behind them, Miami, Louisville, SMU, that's probably the group that most people are going to be picking from when you look at that number 2 spot. So with the Mustangs, they're right after. So Mario Cristobal gets followed by Rhett Lashley at the podium, 11 to 11:30 a.m. Of course, SMU bringing Kevin Jennings, Alexander Kilgore, Isaiah Wacobia, and Logan Parr to Charlotte. As far as talking points here for SMU, and I'll go back to Miami in a second because another thought just came to me, but SMU is a program right now that I think a lot of people don't know what to do with because of the way the season ended. But most of that, and there's no beating around the bush with it, Kevin Jennings turning the ball over. And I think a lot of people that watch that team that maybe didn't watch them as closely as they should have really are letting that probably affect the way they view not Rhett Lashley, not this program, but just kind of how they affect how their view of the ceiling of this team this year is now affected. Like that wasn't Kevin Jennings going into a Duke's Mayo Bowl against Ole Miss and tossing 3 interceptions and looking terrible, with his full complement of players. That was 100,000+ in Penn State in the freezing cold. And whether the crowd or this or that affected him, it doesn't matter. He made bad decisions. But at the same time, a lot of those bad decisions were well inside enemy territory. They were, game-changing plays that were toward the end of drives that were on the move. SMU was moving the ball on Penn State. And now the question is, of course, how does SMU replace Brashard Smith? But most are probably basing their opinion off of how they view Kevin Jennings. And I'm of the opinion that Kevin is the second best quarterback in the ACC. You got to take down Cade Klubnik at Clemson or in the ACC championship game to change my mind. I am one of those people that will always point towards wins as kind of the way I start off baseline with quarterbacks. Are they winning? Are they winning the big games? And Kevin has done that. And he's also, at the end of last season, not played up to his standard. And I mean, the second half against Clemson was unbelievable, and particularly that fourth quarter. But, right now, Kevin Jennings would be my second best quarterback in the ACC, but you're really kind of splitting hairs with the dynamic playmaking of Jennings, with the consistency of Cade Klubnik. But Darian Mensah, tons of buzz around him with what he's going to bring to Duke. But at the same time, he's jumping up from Tulane. John Mateer is getting a lot of buzz moving from Washington State with his offensive coordinator to Oklahoma. At least he was in the Power 5 ranks last year. That's different than what Tulane went through. And Darian Mensah, I believe it was 24-6 was his TD-INT ratio. Like nothing crazy. So I saw Andy Staples having Darian Mensah as the number 2 quarterback in the ACC. It could turn out that way. I don't necessarily think Darian Mensah is worth the money that has been, allegedly put in front of him to be the quarterback at Duke. And I don't necessarily think he should get the praise above guys like Carson Beck and Kevin Jennings, who have at least put it together well enough for their teams to lead them to college football playoffs, to lead them to an SEC championship game. Look, Georgia was one of the worst teams in the country last year, one of the worst teams in the SEC at running the football. They've not really been a good team at running the football. I mean, so, Carson Beck has kind of had to make, a lot of things happen. And I'm not necessarily high on Carson Beck. I don't love the fit in Shannon Dawson's air raid offense. So they're going to have to do some different things with him at Miami to get him in position to be a top tier quarterback in the ACC. And, Xavier Restrepo out the door, there's a lot of questions around Miami too. SMU losing Brashard Smith is a huge question mark. What I've seen a lot of is Rhett Lashley moving the ball up and down the field with his offenses. So it's hard for me to go against, well, okay, you lose Brashard Smith, you lose this weapon, this absolute stud, but at the same time, you return most of your wide receivers. You're going to miss a Roderick Daniels, a Jake Bailey, but you return most of your key wide receivers. You return an RJ Maryland off his injury and a Matthew Hibner. You return a Stone Eby. You seem to have upgraded your offensive line. You've got some young talent. You've got some transfer talent coming in at the wide receiver position that you should feel good about. So how do you balance all of that is something that's really difficult to kind of talk through as somebody who pays close attention to this team day in, day out. But what I want to learn about SMU to kind of get back to my point here, I think the biggest question is Rhett Lashley giving an update on RJ Maryland. That's probably the first thing we're going to ask him, or maybe we'll tee him up with something else with regards to, his general feel about how the summer went and things like that. But then RJ Maryland, will he be available for camp? Will he be limited? Will he be ready for game one? But especially game two is the biggest question, just to get on the record a response. But we've heard that, throughout the summer, RJ's, if he's not cleared, he's probably real close. I know he began starting to cut and do things like that. It's quite the time for RJ Maryland to kind of get those final hurdles cleared and then get into football shape over the course of fall camp and get going. The good thing is they do have Matthew Hibner, who looks to be a stud. So I say looks to, he is. It's just, having the whole season and not being somebody that is coming out of nowhere. Now teams know who Matthew Hibner is, and especially Pitt, they know who Matthew Hibner is, but that is neither here nor there. When you look at this defense, they bring two of their best players to Charlotte. And Alexander Kilgore playing behind this revamped defensive line, Isaiah Wacobia leading things on the back end. The big questions I would have for them is, man, how do you feel with all that change in front of you? You got your opportunities in the spring against what was a really good offensive line. I felt like in the spring, I've kind of gone back and forth with some people on this, but you look at where SMU's been on the defensive line the last two springs with all the talent they've had. The offensive line has kind of been nicked up. They didn't have Logan Parr last spring. They didn't have Justin Osborne the spring before. There's been some major pieces missing. And that's where we saw a lot of the buzz build around the defensive line. But the offensive line was able to get some holes out there, get some explosive plays, which we really haven't seen over the last two springs. So what do they see playing behind this defensive line? And you have added guys like Shaq Spears. He goes Kivanta Spears from Memphis, and you add Wu Spencer from Louisville. Those are two big bodies that athletically been told they check a lot of boxes. I think Shaq can dunk, and that is a very large human dunking the basketball. So those guys were not here in the spring. But if you're looking at this defense, the last couple of years, it's been built on that defensive line. So does it look differently from a personnel standpoint so much that Scott Simons is getting to play with some fun little toys or, big pieces on that defensive line and start moving guys around, creating different personnel packages? That's something I'm going to try to get out of those two leaders of the defense. And then Logan Parr, he's got Savion Byrd next to him, but he's got a new starting center and Addison Nichols, from what it seems, next to him at center. And that interior outside of Logan is going to look new. But Logan Parr, I would imagine, is going to share a lot of confidence around that group and what they've put together, and especially being able to go through the spring with them and see that development come together. So when you look at that group, you should feel a lot better about it as a whole. just with the experience the returning players have, and then the new pieces they've added seem to really check a lot of boxes. And finally, Kevin Jennings, this is probably the last time I'm going to ask him anything about last year, because this is a quarterback who was one of the most dynamic, one of the most fun players to watch in the ACC and really in the country, if you were paying attention, just what he did, some of those splash plays, game in, game out, some of those escapability type of moves that he can display, and then putting the ball on the money. We know he needs to take care of the ball better against top tier defenses. We saw that against Duke, against Clemson, against Penn State, of course, BYU in his first start, which, I'm not a big believer of giving passes, but somebody said to me yesterday, and they were talking about Mississippi State, funny enough, but they said, there are excuses, and then you get to a point where there are actual reasons. And he was talking about how Mississippi State plays 4 college football playoff teams, and then plays Ole Miss in their first 7 games or something like that. So it's going to be another tough season in Starkville. But with Kevin, that Duke game, that Clemson game, that Penn State game, I'm not going to harp on those with him, but I'd like to talk with him a little bit more about how he's gone about trying to fix some of the things that he ran into last year, where he faced some troubles, he faced some adversity. And now you get to this year, and man, he's added 10 pounds, or at least last we were told by Sean Griswold, he's added 10 pounds at that point. He looks stronger. He looks more in command. He has all of these tools. He's got to be at the same time feeling super confident with what he put together as a first-year starter. So I'd love to dive down deep into that with Kevin and just learn more about it. And, quite frankly, I think with Rhett, this is a university that has seen so much change over the past 2 years. And the one constant has been SMU winning football games. So I want to ask Rhett Lashley about that and kind of, get he's humble. So it's going to be probably something where he's, maybe going to, not necessarily want to brag as much, but it's true. They've been the constant at this university the last year or 2 years, excuse me, in terms of how they've been able to win, how they've been able to carry the buzz around the university. And Rhett Lashley's been the guy he's now the most tenured big name on this campus, with Jay Hartzell, Damon Evans, Andy Enfield, and Adia Barnes coming in. Of course, there are other big names out there, but and board of trustees that were here and have been here. But as far as the big names on campus, Rhett Lashley is the tenured one, you could argue. But he's got a great situation. He's got a vision that is working out in the short term and a vision that is being put in play for the long term. And I'd like to learn more about that with him. So those are some of the things that I'm watching with Rhett Lashley. But before I get into the rest of the ACC or some of my thoughts on some of the storylines around the teams, I do want to remind you guys that you need to head over to Manny's Tex-Mex, 4 locations across DFW, and get there and share those magic words. I had somebody text me last week, maybe it was last week before, and they said, "Hey, is queso still good?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they went in there, had themselves a great little meal, 10% off your order at Manny's when you mention queso to your server. They can hook you up with that discount on your food, and then they will, give you that 10% off. And they're always excited to hear queso. So it's always a good time out there at Manny's. You see the mariachi bands out there every now and again, and those patios are so much fun to get out and sit out on. Even, it's hot right now, but 4 DFW locations. They've got the Lakewood location on Mockingbird, Quentin Campbell. They've got Saxey. They've got Rockwall Heath. So great time at Manny's. Make sure you head out there and see what they've got going on. Always a good time at Manny's Tex-Mex. All right, you look at the rest of the ACC, and on Monday, really, there are 2 things that I guess I would look at. And one is Stanford. I want to hear from Frank Reich. I mean, that is quite the situation he's stepping into. Andrew Luck, I saw something on Twitter where he was taking snaps in OTAs or doing something. That's wild. He's a GM of Stanford football. I'm sure he can still rip it, but Frank Reich takes over. I just want to learn more about kind of his plan because, he's interim, but it's such a unique situation for him and a school that I think for those of you who went out there to that Stanford game, you know what I'm talking about. Outside of getting a Stanford degree, I can't imagine why anyone would go there right now. I mean, sad stadium. There's just, you just can't even have any joy going to a college football game there, truthfully. So really tough situation. They're trying to revitalize it. I'd like to learn more from him, but then you got Tony Elliott bringing Virginia in there. Cal is also there, but Cal is kind of normal almost, I guess. In a sense, there's really nothing that really shocks me about them, but Virginia is the one that I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what's what, because Chandler Morris, Highland Park, Texas's own, is coming through as the quarterback for the Cavaliers. So really cool to finally catch up with Chandler and learn more about how he's feeling in what'll be, I'm pretty sure, his final year of college football. So that's Tuesday. And then Wednesday is Mike Norvell and Florida State, Louisville and Jeff Brom, Syracuse and Fran Brown, Pitt with Pat Narduzzi, Georgia Tech with Brent Key, and then Wake Forest. So intrigue all around on those six schools on Wednesday. And it's bright and early, 9 to 9:30 with Mike Norvell, Tommy Castellanos, who SMU fans know well, of course, coming in there. But then Louisville, same thing. New quarterback, Miller Moss. Syracuse, they're bringing Ricky Collins, but also signed Steve Angelini from Notre Dame. Pretty sure it's Notre Dame. And then Pitt, of course, brings star running back Desmond Reed back. But will Eli Holstein be able to lead them again? They're not bringing him. Brent Key is always one of my most favorite coaches to watch. And then, of course, Haynes King, who's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the entire country, just how tough he is. And then with Wake, Jake Dicker takes over and just kind of learn more about what his vision is with the program. But I would imagine the pressure is kind of on Mike Norvell to give some good answers, I guess. I mean, after last year, and there's so much change. I'm high on Tommy Castellanos. At the same time, man, I don't know if Gus Malzahn is just, I don't know. I'm really torn on all the changes they made. It can't be worse than 2-10, I suppose. But I think there's a lot of projecting going on there. So we'll see how the Seminoles are. And then Louisville, they're looking to find some consistency. They can lose to SMU at home, but then go to Clemson and beat the Tigers. Syracuse, how do they replace Kyle McCord? That's a big question. Pitt, they've got to rebound after breaking down last year. And then Georgia Tech, they just continue to play tough, strong football and be a pest for everyone. SMU is really lucky they don't have to play Georgia Tech this year with the schedule they have. But then Thursday, you wrap up Bill O'Brien. Not as high on Boston College as the national media is, and even some of our subscribers. I don't know why. Maybe I just don't I know Bill O'Brien could make quarterbacks look great, but I don't know. That's a tough gig, just overall. So I don't know. I'm just not as high on BC as they get farther and away from what they've been in the past. But Virginia Tech, a lot of questions. Brent Pry on the hot seat there. He brings Kyle Drones, who was hurt last year. I bet you they bounce back this year a little bit, enough to keep his job. And then you've got Clemson with Dabo, Cade Klubnik, TJ Parker, Antonio Williams, and Peter Woods. What a lineup just right there. And then Duke, you got Manny Diaz with Darian Mensah, Brian Parker, who's an offensive lineman, Chandler Rivers, defensive back. He's one of the best. He's from Texas. Wesley Williams, defensive end from Virginia. They're looking to build off of a bowl game last year. And then, of course, Bill Belichick in North Carolina. They really should have saved Bill Belichick for last. But not last is North Carolina. They're second to last. NC State is last with Dave Dorian. A lot of pressure there for them to get that right. CJ Bailey looks like a rising star. Kind of, you could almost say he got a lot more burn than Kevin Jennings did over the early part of his career, but I could see a rise like Kevin Jennings out of CJ Bailey this fall. And I have no idea what to expect out of North Carolina. Zero. None. Yeah, I kind of think that whole tenure is either going to go really well or really poorly. It's my take on it. I know that's controversial and playing it certainly down the middle, but I have no idea what to expect out of UNC. But it'll be fun to ask Bill Belichick a question. Dean and I are definitely going to be lined up for that one. So we'll see if we can get him to stop by Radio Row. But no, ACC Media Days, ton of fun. We're going to see all the ACC Network crew there. And of course, they're great to us, great people. And we're looking forward to, getting more with them, more time with them as the season approaches over 3 days at ACC Media Days. So kind of feel like I shotgun approach there and scattershot a little bit, but hope that wasn't too bad in terms of the rambling. But before we get to our interview with JD PicKell, I do want to remind you guys as well about two of our sponsors, StatusJet. Go to statusjet.com today to learn more about what David Henry and his team can do for you. Football season is approaching, and you couldn't pick a better time to be flying as well for business. So if you want to make a football game, a business trip, make sure you reach out to our friends at StatusJet, 844-782-8875, and mention On the Pony Express or code PonyUpACC for a discount on a round-trip flight today. And then, of course, you've got our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. Make sure you head up 75 in McKinney to any of their 4 dealerships, whether it be Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, or Mitsubishi. Mention On the Pony Express for employee pricing on new or pre-owned vehicles. So that is a great reason to head up there and at least look at their lineup. You can get service. You can get collision center repairs done as well. And you can find everything you need and more at thomasautogroup.com. So without any further ado, we now go to our interview with On3 analyst JD PicKell. This one I hope you guys enjoy. We appreciate you guys listening to the On the Pony Express podcast. And we'll catch you guys next time after this interview with our own JD PicKell. Welcome back to the On the Pony Express podcast. Really excited to be joined by On3's own JD PicKell. Thanks for stopping by with us here.
Man, happy to be able to get to talk some ball with you, man. This is fun. We got this season around the corner, and Media Days kind of feels like the unofficial pick to that. So I'm juiced. Happy to be on.
You piqued my interest in switching it up and starting to talk a little ACC as well. When we talked about Clemson, just a moment ago, it's a league that is fighting the power 2 battle right now, trying to be more of that caliber. When you look at the caliber at the top of this league, it's really strong.
Yeah,
Clemson, Miami, SMU, Louisville. I mean, that 4 could kind of carry it as long as they're what they think they can be this year.
I think there's a couple too that are super sneaky. Like, I will never in my life bet against Fran Brown after hearing him talk and how he operates.
I was going to say Brent Key, and we're in it.
Brent Key's, oh my gosh. I didn't even, I wasn't even going to say Brent Key, but he's a program guy through and through. I mean, you cut him open, program comes out. Pitt. I mean, they were 7-3 with Eli Holstein in the game, and I know they finished 7-3. Yeah, SMU, the Ponies, man, took care of them. But like, it's one of those leagues where it really shouldn't be shocking to anybody if one of these teams we're not talking about as much right now ends up being this year's Arizona State or whatever, and Indiana from a year ago, kind of that storyline that just pops up at the end of November. And it's like, oh, wait, actually, they only have 1 loss. We have a situation in the ACC. We get 2 teams in. Like, it would make a lot of sense.
What's your early take on the league as a whole? Like, I know you and I talked about Clemson, and they are deservedly so getting a ton of press around what they have at the top of their roster. Cade Klubnik coming back. All that talent. It's a tough bet or it's a tough thing to not see them in Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think at the end of the day, this obviously better than anybody, Billy, but like the fact that it's such a recruiting and talent acquisition game in college football, if you have the most dudes, you're probably going to at least set yourself up to kick the door in to win a conference title. Maybe you don't, win it because you have the more talented guys. But when you have that potential, you're always sort of floating around that possibility. You know what I mean?
You're A&M in Miami.
You're A&M in Miami. That's 100% the case, and I'm high on A&M too. Not that we're talking about A&M right now, but it's
Marcel Reed. Yeah,
and maybe that's kind of what this part of the year is about. Is we're all so enthralled with the stars and the talent, and we'll get to we'll get through October and like, man, Clemson's lost 4 games. What's going on? So I mean, that would surprise me, but especially during this part of the year, you look at the rosters and the talent, and like Clemson, Miami, and then you mentioned Louisville and those schools. I think after talent, I go to the coaches. And so I think about a guy like Brett Lashley. You go about a guy like Jeff Brom. I mentioned Fran Brown, like Brent Key. There's so many good coaches in the league to where it wouldn't be shocking if one of those schools doesn't bring their best and then a great coach gets them on the right day. I mean, Georgia Tech almost did that to Georgia in the last year.
Oh, they should have won that game. That was a tough watch to see that one not go their way. With SMU, you've been able to chat with Brett Lashley here and there. You've been able to get some time to watch them. What have you seen from their rise? Just as a national guy, and are they poised if they can kind of keep that 10-win level to really break through in the national conversation a little bit more?
I think you hit it on the head. Like I think they were sort of one of those schools that we always talked about. We being like the college football community talked about as hey, NIL is legal now. That's Highland Park. That's SMU. That's those brands. If they get a guy in there that can run that whole operation and they can start winning, like you have all the key ingredients, right? And there's other things you got to add to make it really go. But Brett Lashley and their success on the field last year, at this point, if you're SMU, like you're swinging a hot bat. Like I personally don't pay, or I shouldn't say pay attention, but I don't put as much stock into recruiting rankings until like November when we start, running the corner to signing day. But I mean, I have my notifications set for Hayes Fawcett when he tweets, and I see a lot of SMU graphics coming up. Yeah. So I'm like, if they keep that momentum and that juice on the field, it will translate to getting better players and better players. Back to what we said, you're already in position to go win conference titles.
Yeah. Cade Klubnik is obviously the gold star of the league, I would say, just with his draft buzz and things like that. SMU has Kevin Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as tough of an end to the last season as it was, what he was able to do was just dynamic in so many different ways. And he's a player that has really got a chance now to prove, I think, a lot of people that was his first time in 100,000, fan environment up at Penn State. It just didn't go well.
And I think like he gets under talked about because I think a lot of people haven't seen him play. And if they did see him play, it was that one game against Penn State. When in reality, it's like, no, this dude's a really good quarterback, electric, and he's must-see TV. So, like, if SMU's playing on a weekday, I might consider watching that because you're going to see one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
And the ACC brings in a Carson Beck, brings in a Darian Mensah. It's an intriguing league at the quarterback position. I talk about program guys.
Yeah.
Haynes King, like that dude is tough as nails.
Through and through.
Love him. Steve Angelini comes in at Syracuse. They've got a quarterback competition, I bet. The top 4, though, Miller Moss coming in at Louisville, whoever hits on those new quarterbacks is going to see the dividends. And that we say that after Miami had Cam Ward.
Yeah, it really is a transfer portal college football at the quarterback position, but it's a transfer portal conference at quarterback in the ACC with all those guys you just mentioned. Like there's going to be a lot of guys, and similar to what we said with the different conversation in the SEC, a lot of coaches that kind of have their name next to the quarterback label or quarterback developer label or offensive coach label, like a Jeff Brom, a Mike Norvell with Thomas Castellanos and Gus Malzahn. Like there's so many guys where it's like, okay, you're the quarterback guy. You got a new dude, like go prove you're the quarterback guy because this conference feels pretty wide open relative to what Clemson and Miami could be.
Yeah, exactly. Like Clemson, safe bet. Who knows with Miami at this point? Like every year, it's just they find a way to not take advantage of the talent they have. But, you do have biggest storyline for the ACC, just from a relevancy standpoint for me is does FSU get back to let alone bowl eligibility, but kind of in that conversation.
Yeah, I think for them, it's so tough to tell a fan base like that. So many changes. It's so tough to tell them, hey, 7-5 is not a bad year. Hey, 8-4 is not a bad year. And it's like it's a fan base with so much pride, and that logo has so much prestige. You think Bobby Bowden, and like for last year to go the way it did, my biggest frustration watching Florida State was I was in second game of the year, Boston College, Thomas Castellanos, oddly enough, funny how life works, tearing him up. And like just the body language was horrific.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all have only lost one game. Like, how are we
there?
This point emotionally, mentally, we got palms up, we got guys jogging off the field. I'm just like, this is so weird to see. How well do you flush that from one year to the next with new coordinators now? For Mike Norvell, you mentioned the change. That to me is a massive determining factor. And if they can take a step to what you just said, bowl eligibility, get in the 8-win range, and kind of build on that.
Awesome. JD PicKell, thanks for stopping by with us on the Pony Express podcast.
Appreciate you having me, man.
It. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.